Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to the Marriage is Tougher Than Woodpecker Lips podcast. This is Brian, joined by my co host, Paul. We'd like to welcome you to a community meant for the men of the world to share their thoughts and perspectives on marriage. We can learn from each other's experiences and help each other be better husbands. This week on the pod, we want to talk to you about putting yourself first. We'll explain to you what we mean when we get in.
Yeah, before we hop all the way in, just want to say thanks for rocking with us. If you are a first time listener, welcome. If you've been with us for a while, welcome back. If you'd like to connect with us at any point, please search Marriage is Tougher on all social media channels, or you can go to our website, marriageistoffer.com. If you'd like to be a guest, you can hit us at the website as well. There's a contact form you can fill out. Or if you'd like to tell us anything about ourselves, you can do that there as well. Um, Again, we just would like to thank you for checking us out. Let's hop into this episode.
Yeah, man. So tell me what your perspective is on putting yourself first.
That's how you're going to start it.
That is because I've got a perspective, and there's also some recent videos I've seen that seem to lean maybe red pill.
Gotcha.
So I think I'd like to bring that up and have a bit of a discussion about it. I'll see if I can queue up that video, actually, if I can potentially find it.
Yeah, I think putting yourself first, that's the question. What's that look like? Um, I think it is making sure that you are the most healthfully that you can be spiritually, mentally, and physically. Um, because if you are showing up deficient in any of those areas, you're not going to be fully effective in your purpose in the world.
Mm.
The purpose with your family, the purpose with your relationships, your job. You'll be at a disadvantage, not in as far as against everyone else, but against your own self. And if you ascribe to the thought process of I need to put my best set forward, or I'm going to do this as like I'm doing it for the Lord, you want to be able to bring your best. Sometimes though, we don't always know that we're deficient in an area
Mm.
or that we need help in the area. So that's why it's sometimes good to get an outside source to kind of look at us and kind of help us, whether it be a coach, therapist, spiritual advisor of some sort, just someone that can see the blind sides, best friend, um,
Yeah.
wife, anyone that can help be like, not the best. But yeah, that's kind of my thing, is being as healthy as you can in those three areas.
Yeah. I think I'm very similar in my opinion of putting yourself first. I would like to say that when you have young children, the idea of that becomes very difficult, right? Because
100.
it is inherent that you put all of their needs before yours. And, you know, like let's just talk about sleep, right? You have a newborn and the newborn's not sleeping. You don't think, well, if I don't get enough sleep, then I'm not going to be healthy enough to make sure that you eat next morning, right?
Right.
It's like, no, we do what we need to do to make sure they're taken care of in a moment. So I think there's a couple different perspectives on it. Um, but that's the first thing that pops in my mind is, putting yourself first almost feels selfish. But then when you frame it the way you did, it's like, oh, wait, no, that makes a lot of sense. Like, if I cannot be healthy, number one, I'm not going to be around long enough to
Hmm.
provide, the environment and life that I want them to have. But then secondly, like I'm not in the moment going to be able to interact with them the way they would like me to. because I haven't done what I needed to do to keep my mind healthy, keep my body healthy, keep my Christianity and faith healthy, right? Now, I want to, and this might take us slightly off topic. Fair warning. This is why I didn't go and look for the video, because I changed my mind on looking for the video, because on second thought, when I started recollecting what they were talking about in the video, they did speak a little bit about, as a man, putting yourself first, right? And it dealt a lot with spending time with your guy friends, um, and you know basically explaining why you need to have those connections in place. And then where it might be a little bit off topic is, part of that reason he was explaining was, he basically was stating that women are built differently, and he felt, I don't want to, I guess, not explain this the way he did. So I'm trying to choose my words carefully. He was basically saying that they're not built to deal with the problems that we deal with. And if we were to continually only go to them to share our problems, it'd be detrimental to the relationship. So he said we need that space, excuse me, for us to share our quote unquote man problems with other men. And I think I agree and disagree with that. I agree to the extent that, yeah, there are some things that I don't necessarily want to share with my wife. Those things typically look like issues I've had at work, right? And I'm sure the argument could be made that that is something I can share with my wife. However, that's typically something that I don't do, because I try to separate my work life and my home life. Take that for whatever you feel, however you practice it. It is what it is, right? It's just my reality. But then on the other side, I think what the marriage relationship, from my perspective, is, the woman complements the man, and you have to be able to share some of those things with her, so she has some perspective into what it is that you deal with and struggle with, so she understands how to be a complement to your life, right? So if we either keep all of those things inside or only share it with a subset of people, it could be detrimental to the relationship in a fashion where she feels not only left out, but unaware how to be of any assistance at all to you.
Yeah. Video. I think I've seen a video or a similar video
Okay.
of that. Um, and I think there is an aspect of to being healthy and having healthy relationships. And the best way to be healthy is have um, multiple relationships. Um, Not marital relationships, just putting that out there, but just multiple relationships with people that are invested in you, right? Whether it's someone who's voluntarily doing that, or someone you're paying to do that, right? So
Right.
whether it's friendships, and that can be, guys, couples, you know, obviously your wife, and then, like I said before, counselor, trainer, life coach, someone that pay to give you feedback and their expertise. I think to that point of what we're talking about, it's all about communication, the time that you have, and the spouse that you have. Do you knowing what they can handle, and that comes with just conversations. So the more you talk, the more you know what, and all those things change as we go through different stages of life as well. So to say a blanket answer, it's tough for me because life is more gray than black and white. But I do know, or not, but and I do know that having a relationship like ours
Right.
has definitely strengthened our marriage based on the things that we talk about. And it's not even the topics, it's the freedom to not have to consider how someone will react allows me to really walk through things, um, to get to where I need to go as I'm processing things.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just because we're different, guys and girls. And I think my I view my wife in a different way than I do you, in a way that is, um, healthy, because you're different people and you have a different place. And yeah, we've talked about this before. There's just certain things that when conversations come up, it's easier to talk to a friend at first, for sure. And you can even validate if it's worth bringing up.
Yeah. True.
So but all that to say is the I guess how I'll sum that up is the healthiest version of you. There is a team around you. It's not you on an island.
Yeah, that's good. And I think you may have mentioned it a little bit, but not. It's difficult to make a blanket statement on that because not every wife is the same, right? Different women can handle different levels of concerns that a husband might have outside of the home, right? Um, and so it's up to you to discover, number one, how much of that she can handle,
Good word.
how much of it that she wants to handle, right? Because you might have a wife that's like, no, I'm here for all of it. Like, like I got you,
Hmm.
which could be amazing. I'm not sure. Um, Maybe I need to explore that more. Is what
Yeah.
I'm maybe getting at. I'll have to ask Katie if she feels left out of some of my experiences, right? And maybe she'll come back and say, like, no, I really don't care to know all of the struggles, right? Um, but then she also might say, like, but if there's something that you feel you need to share with me, then you should feel free to be able to share that with me, right? And so the other thing I'm thinking about is it kind of goes both ways, right? We're not always sharing something because we need assistance or advice on it. Sometimes we just need to get something off of our chest,
Hmm.
right? Because there's some things that, all right, so let me go a little bit deeper. There might be some race issues that I deal with that I might not share with her,
Hmm.
right? Number one being because I don't know how she would relate to it. So I don't know that she's equipped
Hmm.
for something like that, right? However, there might be something that happened at work that I'm upset about. And I think dependent on what that is, I might need to just vent specifically because that could be a sensitive topic.
Hmm.
And now I'm venting to my wife. So I know that information isn't going anywhere,
Right.
right? I can feel free to say, this is some bull, right?
Hmm.
I don't know, man. I think I still have to work through that a little bit, and that's going to take having some conversations with my wife about it.
Oh, for sure. I think it's a good topic, and it's a good way to figure out how to healthily share these things, since we're talking about, being healthy and what that looks like. Um, it definitely helps to know how to gauge things.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What is a healthy way to uh, sort of figure out? No, that's not what I wanted to ask. I apologize. What does it look like to have healthy separation in order to take care of self? Does that make sense?
I was trying to think, should I ask him to rephrase? I
Yeah,
think I know
I
what you
saw
mean.
that in your face.
Um, Not 100%. So you mean just being apart from, kind of being to yourself to be healthy, like apart from everyone else, or specifically apart from your spouse?
I think my thought was specifically apart from your spouse.
Um, I think number one, the healthiest thing is communicating what is acceptable, right? Because you can be, you can go from if we're talking about things that are athletic or hobbies, right? That
Mhm.
help, that rejuvenate you, give you a space to kind of explore things that you like, whatever. You can go from a 10-minute yoga video to 18 holes of golf.
Right,
And that time frame is way different.
right, right.
So, what is acceptable? What are you into? What's the time frame and the frequency? I think starting at that way um, there's no, so it's not assumptions, right? We have expectations, not assumptions, because we can't assume that she's okay with me being out for 4 hours as I hit these 18 holes when she's expecting to be back, when she's assuming you'll be back in an hour. That already gives a contentious space to you um, being able to explore whatever that is to be healthy away from her. So I think number one is talk about expectations, activities, and agreeing on what those are. Um, Number two is holding true to those things. Um,
Yeah,
so if you say you're going to be somewhere, be somewhere. If you say you're going to be somewhere at this time, be somewhere. Or check in if it's going to be longer,
right.
right? Um, so I think actually those are like really the two basic ones. If you do that, and I say three, once you're in that space, go all in, um,
Mhm.
because it's that space is for you.
Yeah,
So try to dive into it as much as you are, because as a husband and someone who wants to provide for their family, whatever the safest place that they can be, a lot of times our minds are wrapped up into things that make that happen.
mhm.
But to even free our minds up from that cage, um, is very helpful. So I would say those are the three things that, not that you need three, but that's where I landed on.
Yeah, that's good. Um, as you were speaking, something that went through my mind is not confusing what we're talking about with autonomy. I think
Hmm.
that's something that I struggled with, right? It was like this feeling where if I feel I need time for myself, I should just go take it. I don't necessarily need to communicate it. I just know that I need some space, go take it, right? And that's not fair to the relationship. And if you flip it, how would you feel if she were to do that, right? Now you don't know what's going on, where she's at. Um, so yeah, I think just be careful not to confuse fuse this with your desire for autonomy.
Yeah, I mean, let's be clear. You are grown and you can make whatever
Right.
decision you want.
Yeah.
But when you choose to be in a marriage, you choose to not lean that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, just to be clear, like you can make whatever decision you want, but the choice that you made to say I do is greater than the choice to do whatever you want.
Yeah. And as we all know, our choices come with consequences. Those consequences could be either good or bad.
Absolutely.
So just saying, learn that lesson the hard way. Put that out there.
I'm going to ask you, like, what are some things that you have put in place to um, put yourself first or be a healthy you?
Yeah. So going to the gym has become important to me, right? I mean, I guess it always has been important, but I've not always focused on my physical health, right? And that has been, discussions with my wife on what my goals are. And personally, um, it was figuring out how can I accomplish this without taking time away from the family. And it's funny, most things that I do, that's the filter I put it through. How can
Mm-hmm.
I accomplish this without taking time from the family? Right? And that comes from having a full-time job, being a business owner, you know, uh, trying to execute this podcast and all the other multiple side gigs and interests that I have, right? Hanging out with friends, golfing, whatever the case may be. It And the funny thing about this is whether or not I communicate that to my wife, it literally always goes through that filter. Um, so there's that, being physically healthy and finding the time to do that. And what that has looked like is, just getting up before everybody else does. Um, my mental health, I have expressed to my wife that I would like to get back into couples counseling. Um, I am, however, thinking that it may be beneficial for me to seek a counselor of my own. All right. Um, because I think while we have our conversations once a week, I think it's beneficial to have, you know, not just additional conversations, but very targeted conversations uh, from someone who I guess doesn't necessarily have the potential to pull punches,
Hmm.
right? Um, so there's that. And I don't know. Do I have to do three things? I don't
No,
know if I have a third.
you don't have to.
Rest. It would be my third. Needing rest. I'm trying to focus more on getting more sleep, um, because I know what the difference is of me going to work and then doing all of the things throughout the day and not laying back down until 9 or 10 o'clock at night on 4 hours of sleep, and the difference between me having like 7 to 8 hours of sleep, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the cost of that difference is, me getting home, finally being able to sit down and not have the energy to engage the children how either I would want to or they would want me to, right? And a lot of times their requests are very simple, like, "Hey, just play this game with me." Right now, with my youngest, she likes this matching game, so the flip the cards over, find a
Mm-hmm.
match, go again. And if I haven't slept well, as simple as that game is, I barely have the energy to do that, right? And then I also, because I get home earlier than my wife, I also have this, responsibility to try to get dinner started. And like I've said on the pod before, maybe throw a load of laundry in. Um, But I think recently, because I haven't been sleeping well, I haven't been executing on those items the way I would prefer to.
Hmm.
Um, and then, there's a cost to that as well, right? Now I have less time with my wife because I've put this off. And you know, we can always make excuses like, well, I was tired, so let me grab a quick 20-minute nap. But then that 20-minute nap puts me behind, especially when the kids have activities outside the home and
Hmm.
things of that nature. So, um, me being routine oriented assists with me achieving all of these goals that sometimes feel like I'm just grabbing at air,
Hmm.
right? Um, but yeah, I think without rambling anymore, that's where I'm at.
No, that sounds good. You were saying something when you started. Is how do we determine if something's important, right? Um, because I've said the same thing, like, getting to the gym, working out, running, whatever physical activity that I know I need to do is important. But is it important just in thought, or does it show true importance when we put action behind it? Right? Is it something that we know we should prioritize and then it becomes important when we're actually doing the activity? I was just thinking because to me, yeah, I know I've needed to work out, and put time aside to do that, but I haven't proven it's important until I've made the time.
Right. That's a good way to word that. What I was going to say is, you're using all the words, right? Important, priority, and there's a difference between saying or even just thinking something's important and actually making it a priority. Once you make it a priority, that means you have put action behind it, and you know what do they say? Actions speak louder than words.
Hmm.
Now, I also think that having conversations with my wife is important. That's just inherently important. I don't always execute on that, but it doesn't make it any less important, right? Your
Right.
physical health is important. If you want to live a longer life, your physical health is important. If you want to be around longer for your children, your physical and mental health are important. Not taking the steps to take care of those things means you haven't made it a priority. It doesn't make it any less important,
I like that.
right? So it is, again, it goes back to the choices that we make to either do or not do something that will show to others what not only is important, but what we place as a priority. And what boundaries are you willing to place around that importance?
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. That was a good thought experiment for me because, yeah, there are so many things that we know that are say that I know I need to do that I may not necessarily be acting on.
Mm-hmm.
And the principle of the life I want to lead is putting action to those things. And so trying to figure out how to be more action oriented, um, needs to be a priority for me.
Yeah. And the funny thing is like you can't even really gauge it about or by what you feel is more important than another thing, right? It's a lot of times it's may come down to what do we have the capacity to make a
Mm,
priority at
yeah.
any given time. I let my health slip for a while, but it wasn't any less important to me, right? And then if you want to swing the other way, right? Shooting pool and playing in the pool league that I played in was important to me. I could argue that it still is, but I haven't done it for years now, right? And that was a choice that I made along with my wife that my priorities had shifted,
Mm-hmm.
right? To family, work, and getting out of debt and all the other things that were also important.
Yeah, I think understanding what your priorities are is a part of putting yourself first because it
Mhm.
gives you clear goals and then you can put together a plan. And having a clear mind is one of those things that help you achieve those goals and to be healthy. Which I didn't know we were going here because I never thought about this.
Mhm.
But I think setting your priorities and then setting everything else within those parameters and what you said about the boundaries for other things. And boundaries are hard. I think
Mhm.
putting up boundaries is definitely something that aids to your healthiness, um, and is also putting yourself first because it allows you to execute on those things that you have made priority.
Absolutely. You know, I look at boundaries kind of like budgeting,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, at least that's how it plays out a lot in my life. When I put boundaries around my time, it's me budgeting my time. So I know I have, an hour before work to work out,
Mm-hmm.
and I have another half hour to wash my body. Then I have that time to transition into the office. I have those 8.5 to 9 hours of work. I have X amount of time, which depending on traffic is a little bit of wiggle room for that commute back home.
Mm-hmm.
Um, maybe 5 minutes to calm my mind before I really start engaging the kids and what needs to happen beyond that. So what that typically looks like for me is I'll engage with the kids for a little bit, ask them about their day, how was school, did you get your schoolwork done? Because usually by the time I get home, their homework's done. Um, uh, you know, give them the opportunity to respond, which is important,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not just asking the questions and then like forgetting that they're probably going to have a response, because that has happened before in my life where I've just checked a box, asked the kids how the day is, and then moved to the next room. Right? Like that's it sounds weird, but that's how for me. That's how process oriented I am.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I have to be mindful of that, and then figuring out what needs to happen with dinner. How can I make our environment more acceptable to come home to for my wife, so she doesn't feel stressed or she gets anxious when there's like dishes around, and I've got some young kids, and you know putting having a bowl of cereal might stay there all day. Like I'm gone while they're eating breakfast. By the time everybody's ready to go, they're playing around, eating, and then like the bowl makes it to the kitchen, but it's probably just sitting there for the rest of the day, which
Mm-hmm.
is unfortunate. Um, but I know she doesn't want to come home to that, so I try to straighten up those things that have been left behind, as the process may have not allowed for in the morning. And then we sit down, have dinner. Um, it's like finding that correct time for dinner, as we might need to go back out for kids' activities
Mm-hmm.
or our own activities. And then trying to start that nighttime routine on time, which has become more difficult. I don't even know how I got on this topic, man. I'm just
Boundaries. We're just talking boundaries,
boundaries. Thank you.
time,
Um,
budget.
yeah.
So,
So, you know, being strict with those, I have proof that it gives me a specific result. Um, so I try to be as strict with that as I possibly can,
mm-hmm.
because number one, I know my children need that. as much as they will push up against it, I know I need to stand firm in those boundaries. And obviously, yeah, we can let the boundaries down a little bit here and there. Um, and that'll happen more when with summer coming around. But I also know that while I need to let those go a little bit, I also need to make sure there is still some structure there. But having those things in place make it easier to circle back around, easier for me to plan out how I can take time for myself.
So priorities, discipline, structure, boundaries, communication. Communication of priorities would probably be the first step.
Right.
But I think those are ways to be healthy, and it's okay. I mean, for sure, getting in the gym is giving me life right now. And having forgotten how that made me feel or how it affected my body means I've been away too long. So there may be
Mm.
things in your life that you have to remember that were once priorities. And as we talked, maybe they shifted, as stages of life happen. But it's okay to revisit that as a conversation with yourself and with your spouse about, hey, like I'm thinking about getting back into this. Um, and then kind of going from there. I think that's all I have. I don't know if you have anything else. Um,
Sorry, I muted myself, but yeah, no, I think that's it.
all right. Well, thanks for working through this conversation with us. We appreciate you. Again, if this was beneficial to you at all, or you think someone may benefit from this conversation, go ahead and share this. Otherwise, if you'd like to go deeper or have any other questions, reach out to us. Searching Marriage is Tougher on all social media platforms, or you can go right to our website, marriageistoffer.com, where you can leave a question or comment in the contact form, or let us know you'd like to be a guest. Until next time, we'll chat with you later.
Peace.